This is you. Your name is Naughty Dog, and everything is going just fine. Except for the fact that I just lied to you. Because the year is actually... and everything is totally fucked. Financial meltdowns. Mental breakdowns. Make that 2. Fantastic 4-2. 420, cool kids. Scene kids. Kids in scenes. Have you seen this kid? Things were terrible, and the world needed a sign that things were going to be okay. And you know what? That's exactly what they got. My god, what is that? Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Wait a minute, that's Uncharted Drake's Fortune for the PS3. A sprawling adventure filled with intricate characters in a world where new dangers introduce themselves around every corner, complemented by weighty yet satisfying gameplay, mesmerizing graphics, and a soundtrack that just makes you wanna... Also, Gwyneth Paltrow makes a cameo. For the years to come, Naughty Dog would continue to redefine storytelling within gaming. And for the most part, people were satisfied. But at the start of 2012, things started to change. The gamers, they started to rise up. Guess what, gamers? We're working on a new game!
Oh, let me guess, it's Uncharted 4. Another fucking Uncharted game. Nothing new, nothing exciting, just more of the same.
Fuck. Alright everyone, we need ideas for a new game. Hit me.
Why don't we just make another Uncharted game where we kill off the main protagonist in the first 2 hours? The fans will fucking love it.
Good ideas.
We could always just make a new intellectual property. What has it been? Like 6 years?
I hear zombie games are pretty hip and cool. Why don't we just do that?
We can't just follow the rest of the industry. We're supposed to be leading the way. No, we need to make something
dark. Something that will inspire the gaming industry for the next 10 years. Something that will win us all the rewards and all of the money for the end of time.
Bruh. Why in fuck's name did you do that?
Shut up and watch.
Why don't we just make a zombie game that's got, like, nothing to do with zombies and everything to do with humanity?
Hum.
That could actually work.
Please call me an ambulance. So they got to work. Vibrant colors? I'm thinking grey. Exciting adventure? More like bleak nightmare. Charismatic and handsome? How about beard? Ammunition? No, fuck that shit. Okay, fine, you can have one. 2013 hits. The game is finally released to the public. People are buying it, gamers are playing it, the scores are in, and... Oh no. I don't know how to tell you this, but... you just made a gaming classic. If Naughty Dog struck gold with Uncharted, they just struck diamond with The Last of Us. This game made fucking bank and set up Naughty Dog as one of the biggest names in game development. It's been 7 years since the release of The Last of Us. Naughty Dog did release a game since then, but it was small and insignificant, so we're not gonna worry about it. What we do need to worry about is BOOM! Holy shit, guys, it's happening, guys, it's happening! The Last of Us 2 has finally been announced. Hype. A year later, we get gameplay. Months before release, Joel is revealed. How could things possibly get any better than this? Oh no. Oh no. Oh no! Oh no! If I was to say this game was a little bit divisive, I'd be Auguste Rodin, because you fucking think? This intro's been dragging on long enough, so let's just get to the chase. The Last of Us Part 2 has had a very strange release, overshadowed by rumors, followed by leaks, followed by review bombing, and man-babies telling the game director over Twitter that you're a cock-sucking SJW beta male simp and you should kill yourself. Which probably isn't the right way to go about things. In today's video, I want to take a deep look at The Last of Us Part 2 and talk about its world, its characters, its ending, and how this clip here set the entire internet on fire. This is a critical view of The Last of Us Part 2. Let's get started.
What do you do? I saved him.
I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved him. I saved
A story can only be as gripping as its opening. Fail to grab the attention of your audience and they will lose interest very fast. You've probably been through this before. A friend will try to get you into a show and insist that the show gets good. And even with the promise of something more engaging, you'll always struggle to make it to where it matters, especially when a story's beginning resembles that of a beige wall. The Last of Us 2 has a lot of rough edges when it comes to how it tells its story. But when it comes to its opening, it's as smooth as butter. Okay, that actually doesn't do it justice. Picture a freshly sanded table. Now lace that table with strawberry lube. And for good measure, throw Morgan Freeman's vocal cord on there. Yeah, that's The Last of Us 2's opening. The game opens up with Joel updating Tommy on all the 360 no-scopes he's been hitting, or more specifically, the killing of the last doctor that could have made a cure for the infection at the cost of Ellie's life. It's a nice summary of the previous game's ending, but more importantly, it shows Joel's view of his actions. Where we know he massacred a hospital and went to a guy's throat like it was a raid boss, Joel sums up his actions with the words,
I saved her.
It gives a clear direction of how the events unfolded, but also Joel's nature to justify his actions. He feels that he did the right thing, which I can relate to, as every time I blow out the back of a public toilet with my gamer dookie, I just say it was for the greater good. Now, Ellie's reintroduction is a little janky. We do get a lovely moment between Joel and Ellie, establishing where their relationship stands and an idea of where it's heading. This is good. Very good. And then we get a time skip. And you realize that this isn't the game that you'll be playing. Okay, I know I said the opening was smooth, but yeah, it kind of stops here. Joel's ominous tale and Ellie's gift are such masterful pieces of storytelling, and it's a really nice introduction back into the world of The Last of Us. But time jumping is a big problem. And I'm not talking ocean kind of big. It's more like the size of my penis. Time jumping can be used right, and the first Last of Us is a testament to that. Whenever something jarring or emotional happened that would change Joel and Ellie's relationship, we would get a time jump. These time jumps would show a clear change in characteristics for both Joel and Ellie, but also showed a change in the way they communicated with each other. This is mostly seen in 3 parts. The death of Sam and Henry, where it jumps to seeking out Tommy. After finding Tommy, Joel embraces being a parental figure for Ellie, and we jump ahead to start seeing Joel sharing more about his old life. And after Ellie gets assaulted and nearly dies, it jumps ahead showing Ellie a lot more docile and timid. And with all that being pointed out, let's ask the question. Does time jumping aid in telling a more emotionally sound and coherent story in The Last of Us 2? And the obvious answer is fucking no! I'll give credit where credit is due later, but the one thing that this game does is hold information away from the player from the very start of the game. There are so many details integral to this story that are deliberately held back for shock value later in the game. Time jumping here isn't a tool to tell a better story, it's used to keep you in the dark. And it sucks. The original Last of Us always makes sure that its time jumps are always moving forward with the distinct intention of showing a jarring change in tone after a tragic event. The Last of Us 2, however, goes both ways, to the past and the future. It's like reading a book. When you finish chapter 2, you skip to chapter 5 and then go back to 3 and 4 after. And I don't know how to tell you this, but that's not a good way to pace a fucking story and just makes gamers feel lied to. To even understand the beginning of the game as Ellie, you had to watch the trailer, and if you didn't, you're totally fucked! One thing that I enjoy about the first hour of this game is its ability to teach you the mechanics of the game while not putting you in the situations where you'd be using them. A big part of this game is to throw bottles to distract and stun enemies. But instead of the game filling a room full of bottles and bricks like the site of a construction after party, the game pins you against some kids and gives you snowballs. I know it's not a really big thing to get stoked about, but it actually helps with world building too. This is the first time we've ever seen just a normal town that didn't want to murder our face. And it kind of shows that Ellie's skills from being with Joel have translated into a world where she and many around her are now safe. And it's this sense of safety and normality that dulls you, so that when shit does hit the fan, you are never prepared. Not specifically just you, but Ellie as well. We also get a very vague introduction to Abby, who's camped out on a mountain nearby, and it's kind of obvious by the language used that these people aren't here for crumpets and tea. They hint that they're looking for someone. They're in the town. it's a he. And most people at this point just assume it's Joel, and if the leaks didn't already spoil things for you, this has you on the edge of your fucking seat. A lot of people don't seem to like Abby for obvious reasons we'll get into later, but just trust me when I say, this right here is one of the most intriguing characters in the entire game. Now, I know that some of you that have played this game are eyeing out that dislike button there, and I get it. Believe me, I do. But just bear with me for a second. I'm not really going to go crazy into who Abby is right now, as I feel I can explain Ellie's story better with you knowing nothing about Abby, and two, because she deserves her own segment, so let's keep going. The game so far has introduced elements that, on their own, have been fantastic. The world building through Ellie, the narrative clarity that we get through Joel, and the first new story beats through a character that we don't know. All of this on its own is great. It's amazing. But this is where all those story beats start to crash together. Abby recklessly throws herself into danger, and Joel, the guy we assume she is looking for, just happens to save her. Ellie clearly points out a storm is coming, and then half an hour later, literally head directly into the storm, which you could argue that maybe they take their patrol seriously and they need to make sure that it's clear of infected. But nope, they get stuck in the storm and go and get high. Tommy gives out Joel's name along with Joel himself, and it gets him fucking bamboozled. In the middle of the storm, a guy called Jesse, who honestly is really not fucking important in this game, but the game insists that he is, just happens to find Ellie, and then, in a storm that literally is said could kill, and people already got lost, they split up to find Joel. Jesse tells them that they think Joel and Tommy are missing because they never came back, but like, neither did Ellie and Dina because of the fucking storm, you lunatic. Wouldn't they just assume that Joel and Tommy are camped down in a building? Like Ellie and Dina have? The two people nobody was worried about?
Why are you here?
People are counting on you, you get that? What we do matters.
Well, then why aren't you at the fucking lookout?
Because Tommy and Joel didn't show up.
Jesse openly says he was looking for Joel and Tommy because they never came back. However, he shows no worry for the fact that Ellie and Dina were missing in the storm as well. The only reason he brings up Joel and Tommy as missing and not stuck in the storm is to push the narrative forward that they need to go out and search, when they should just logically assume that Joel and Tommy are camping down just like Dina and Ellie. Also, Ellie and Dina are on a different patrol path compared to Joel and Tommy, as we can see in this diary where they are traded routes. So the fact that Jesse was looking in the wrong spot for them is stupid. We clearly see people getting assigned patrol paths before Ellie heads out, so they know where Joel and Tommy should be. Jesse should be looking in a different location, and the only reason he is here to find them to be a poorly written tool to link up storylines that have no natural way to intertwine.
We waited for them for an hour. I was looking for their horses when I saw lights.
How much of their region have you covered?
Not much.
I'm sorry, but you can't have all these coincidences and expect me to take this game seriously. I get you're trying to sew all these small narratives together so that we can get on the main path and actually start the game, but this is fucking ridiculous. You end up finding out very late in the game that this Abby girl with her group of friends weren't actually looking for Joel, they were looking for Tommy so he could tell them where Joel is.
I found Joel's brother. He's at a settlement out in Wyoming.
But you know that even if he is there, and you do find him, he might not know where Joel is.
So you're looking for Tommy so that you can start looking for Joel, and you manage to bump into both of them at the same time? Excuse me fucking what? Let's just chalk all this up to pure coincidence and just chance. From this point, I'm pretty sure most of you know how this goes. Ellie, being on her own, finds Joel. Joel is being tortured and beaten. There is nothing Ellie can do but watch as a stranger strikes Joel in the head with a golf club. Joel dies. I don't need to say anything else here, just Joel dies. It's heartbreaking, and understandably a lot of people were upset. We just lost one of the most beloved and well-written characters to ever grace our televisions. Everyone is upset. But not in the way that you'd think.
I know you wish things were different. I wish things were different. But they ain't.
Marketing is a gateway into the unknown. Game developers will cherry-pick gameplay footage, rendered action, and behind-the-scenes moments to make sure that you, the consumer, will consider their product. However, something was a little different in regards to The Last of Us Part 2. Most companies will take a nearly complete product and will try to hook you with one defining trait. Sometimes it's a shooting mechanic. Maybe you're sold on a game because of its music and tone. Or perhaps you're a 5-year-old and you just want to see some fucking gaming titties, you disgusting pig. Or perhaps the potential of a story. The reason I'm explaining all this is because through marketing, you are sold a game that doesn't exist. Ooh, is this video taking itself too seriously? I'm pretty sure it is. Marketing is a gateway into the unknown. And what you didn't know is that all of this was a lie. Joel isn't in this game, despite the fact that the marketing would say otherwise. Let's go back to 2017. The reveal trailer for The Last of Us 2 has just been put up, and two things are very clear in this trailer. Ellie is back, and so is Joel. Over the next 3 years, we would get more and more lies. Scenes of present-day Joel in the trailers would turn out to be asset swaps in the flashback scenes from the game. The first true reveal of Joel would also turn out to be a lie, as by the time this shot appears, we already know that Joel is dead. After the game's launch, we would also realize that not a single glimpse of Joel from the trailers was actually present in the game. We would still get to see Joel in flashbacks, however, by this time he is already dead, and it defeats the purpose of him even being there. There is no tension, as no matter what happens to Joel here, he's going to be fine. Until he isn't anymore.
Please stop! Please don't shoot! Joel, please get up!
The manipulation doesn't actually stop there, which blows my mind. The game not only tries to convince you that Joel is alive, but also that Dina, Ellie's girlfriend, is dead, and that the revenge plot hinted throughout the trailers is in relation to her. This can be seen in this specific trailer. Scenes of Dina, shots where we think Dina is being killed, and every other character pondering how they're going to get revenge on a particular someone who isn't actually named. All these scenes on their own mean nothing, but it's the immense presence of Dina and the sudden lack thereof that leads you to believe that she shit the bed. We also receive a CGI trailer where this shot plays, showing Ellie struggle to fight until she sees she is wearing Dina's bracelet, and a quick little flash scene of Dina across the screen, which makes her realize that she knows what she's fighting for. Oh fucking goody. When you arrive in Seattle on day 1 of playing Ellie, Dina joins you in your pursuit for revenge. But in the trailers, Dina is intentionally removed from these scenes to show that she isn't present. Why would they do that unless they wanted you to think that Dina isn't in the game? A lot of people would call this false advertising, but I prefer the term, bro, what the fuck? That's literally just false advertising. How the fuck did you get away with that? Oh, that's right. It's called selling 4 million cocksucking motherfucking copies of this dumb fucking game. We were promised a story that never existed. If the reveal trailer back in 2017 was the only trailer to show Joel at all, I would probably give the game a pass. A lot can change in a game's development in 3 years, but even if they rewrote the game to kill Joel and this didn't reflect the product anymore, why would they keep up that lie for years and weeks from release? Here's a quote from Neil Druckmann, the director and one of the 2 writers for The Last of Us 2.
But you just have to lean into that fear and just say, you know, we're doing something we believe in. And the hard thing that I was getting to is there's going to be fans of the first game that aren't going to like the second game.
Now I wonder why the fuck he felt the need to say that. Nothing fucky-wucky going on here. No. One thing that felt like a drag while playing The Last of Us 2 is the excessive looting and collecting in order to build tools to bonk enemies with. And what confused me about this is I don't remember the first game having this problem. I knew there was looting, but I don't remember it being boring. So I went back to the first game to investigate, and I realized that Joel and Ellie never stopped talking. Joel's wisdom of the old and new world and Ellie's raw innocence is a concoction of both world building and character development that to this day I haven't seen a game do better. In the first game, we get Joel's buttery voice explaining the dangers of this new world and how he longs for things to go back to the way they were. We get to hear Ellie asking questions and hearing her say that the world can't be as bad as he says. Joel and Ellie are like Mentos and Coke. They create this chemical reaction that draws you in and blows your mind. It's something to behold. But take away that Coke, and all you're left with is something mildly refreshing that lasts for 5 minutes and just ends up leaving you with a bad taste in your mouth. And I know this is something that a lot of people won't agree with, but Ellie isn't an interesting enough character to carry an entire story on her own. And yeah, in this game, she isn't always alone, but she doesn't know enough about the world or the way it works to pull us in like Joel did. And that's why everyone is so pissed. You promised us Mountain Dew and then gave us a Sprite. Why the fuck do I keep using soda analogies? The story we got wasn't the one we were promised, but there is still a lot of good here. Like, a lot. So join me as I tear this game to absolute shreds so we can give this clickbait title some justice. Is The Last of Us Part 2 a masterpiece, or is it a fine example of manipulative tactics by a gaming industry to cuck us out of $60, or if you're Australian, $100? Let's find out through Ellie's story.
I'm just a girl. I think they should be terrified.
Ellie's story is a spiral of emotional destruction the likes I've never seen before, and of which I'm still unsure if I liked. There's only so much that you can love in a story about a 19-year-old losing what they consider a parent. You don't fall in love with the mental pain a character goes through, that's just psychotic. Tragic stories aren't stories where you love the narrative itself, but the protagonist's ability to overcome the hardship and end up stronger by the end. But this isn't one of those stories, and that's why I struggle to love it. How can you fall in love with a story so damaging, so unexpected, and so real? After the death of Joel, Ellie sets out to find those who took Joel from her. As the player, we play through the ruins of Seattle, hunting Joel's killers one by one, in the hopes of finding the monster who ended Joel's life, Abby. And this story of Ellie's revenge fucking stings. But it doesn't stay that way forever. But to get to the good stuff, we gotta go through all the shit. Bada bing, bada boom, Joel gets whacked and that motherfucker is dead. And this sets up a huge point. There are no heroic moments in this story. What I got from Joel's death was that this isn't a world where someone jumps in and saves the day at the last minute. This is a world that takes what it wants and doesn't go easy on you. I assumed that this would set up the stakes for some really hard-hitting shit in this game. It's R-rated for God's sake, so the game clearly has a lot to say. Notice how I said assumed. I assumed this game would be unforgiving in its story. They pulled it off with Joel. Fucking hell, surely they gotta keep this shit up. And no, they don't. There is a big problem with this game. You've probably seen it before. It's known as Deus Ex Machina. Or for those that have no idea what that means, it's dumb shit saving the hero of the story out of sheer luck, indicating a writer's inability to write a proper way out of a scenario that involves loss or some form of new knowledge. Check out this scene here. Ellie gets captured by a little boy and a big boy. This is a bunch of strapped men with guns, so they're not to be messed with. Captain Fuckface over here gets a call saying that they need to kill all trespassers, so he goes to kill Ellie and nope, that's the main character of the story, bro. You can't do that. The fuckboys talk for a little bit and then he decides to blow out Ellie's brains again, but nope. Dina makes it just in time to really mess up this fella's day. Small boy doesn't like that and says, oh my god, you killed my boyfriend, and bang. Oh no, he has a gun and he's gonna shoot Dina in the face, but no. He decides that he isn't a fuckboy anymore and that he was a nice guy the whole time, so he's gonna use his hands instead, giving Ellie enough time to use the broken fucking glass to get out of her restraints and really mess this guy's day up too. Oh no, oh gee whiz, if only we killed Ellie the 3 chances we had. You can't write a hard-hitting piece about a gritty world where everyone is shit out of luck and then play a girl that's got enough luck you think she's shitting clovers. Okay, maybe this only happens once. Maybe it's the only time Ellie gets lucky. Well, except for the beginning of the game where the bad guys just for some reason let her live despite the fact pointing out that they're a liability beforehand. And then there's the time where they try to blow her up, but instead of finishing the job, they just knock her out, which gives her a chance to escape later. And then there's the time where she nearly gets shot in the brains, but Tommy jumps in just before Abby shoots her gun. And then there was the time where Jesse saves her ass from getting spotted, which would have resulted in her death. And then there was the time where Dina managed to save her ass from a clicker, despite the fact that the noise the clicker heard happens 15 seconds before Dina gets down there to help her, which means the clicker just vibed in the waiting room for like fucking a millennia just for Dina to save the day. Aside from Ellie, Tommy gets his head spanked by a bullet at point blank range, but Abby somehow missed that shot and is all good, despite the fact that we just saw her have the aim of Clint Eastwood like 10 seconds ago. Oh wait, we're talking about Abby now? Okay, in the second half of the game, Abby miraculously gets her ass saved by a squadron of super cool dudes. When she's balancing on a tower and the game forces you to fall, you just happen to fall into a pool that's like on the 15th floor of some random skyscraper? Okay. Abby gets saved by a bunch of kids at the last second just before getting hung to death. Abby gets saved by the same kids again at the last second. Abby gets saved at the last second by the kids again. Only this time there's a little bit of a mess. Also, aside from just fucking luck, let's talk about coincidences. With the whole sheer fucking odds of her finding both men she wanted to find outside of a town in a blizzard, do I have to keep going? Do you see the problem I have here? You set up stakes with the shocking and impactful death of Joel and show the true unfairness of this world, and then nothing goes wrong for our heroes ever again. Are you fucking serious? Now I get it. You might see this as just nitpicking, but to prove my point and to give you a more coherent comparison, how about I show you coincidences that are written well? After Ellie saves Dina, they recognize the man that they killed as one of the few that were at the lodge when Joel got murdered. After searching his body, they find pictures along with names of all of his friends. The friends group that was close enough to band together and go get Joel. From this small little detail, Ellie now has the names and faces of all of her targets. From there, they can listen to a radio chatter and identify people's names with the tasks they're assigned to, and their locations. Because of one small coincidence, you now avoid having to have Ellie just miraculously bump into all of her targets by pure chance. Luck here is replaced with logic and strategy, and that shit is fun. Another good example is when you play as Abby. When Abby finds her friends murdered, she stumbles upon a map leading her right to Ellie. Now this would have just been another stupid coincidence that Ellie just happened to leave a map behind. However, on Ellie's side of the playthrough, we get to see her marking up her targets and the places that she's been on the map. The reason the map is there for Abby to find is because she tried to use it against Owen and Mel to identify where Abby was. When shit hit the fan and Ellie leaves frantic and scared, we see a shot where it clearly shows the map was left behind in all of the madness. And this is why we get the ending of Abby showing up to the theater where Ellie is held out, because she had the map. When you write it like this, it can no longer be considered a coincidence. It's a setup. Intellectually written ideas to link up both storylines without forcing it too hard and making it unbelievable. This is fantastic. Now look at the examples I was giving before. None of these setups are already established things that could have happened. They just happened, leaving you to ask how the fuck two characters could be so lucky. And that is where the problem stems. Two characters. The convoluted dual narrative attempting to tell the same story twice with no differing perspectives on how you view your opponent. They are the bad guy. In both storylines, whether you play as Ellie or Abby, the way it's written and the way your character sees it is the other person is the bad guy. Now hold on, you might say. We've seen dual narratives work in the past. Resident Evil 2, Detroit Become Human, GTA 5, the list goes on. But within these dual narratives, the playable characters either collaborate, work together, or share a similar goal that results in story beats merging together. The dual narrative presented here aims to not have characters working together, but working against each other, which can work. Playing a protagonist and then playing a villain that we can empathize with can work wonders in building a story. They managed to make us empathize for Handsome Jack. How hard could it be? Very, very hard, because Abby isn't a bad guy you empathize with, because she's not written like a bad guy. She is written in her own story as a protagonist, not a playable antagonist. Naughty Dog have set you up in a situation where both characters consider the other the bad guy. No one actively acts the role of the villain, which in a world as fucked as this, I guess you could say that's good writing, as no one sees themselves as a bad guy, just someone who needs to do what they have to do. But as a player, it's hard to wrap your head around that. Your goal at the start of the game is kill Abby, and by the end of playing Abby, your goal is to kill Ellie. If the game does its job right, which I think it does, and makes you empathize for Ellie, you are fucked here. And if you happen to manage to empathize with Abby's side of the story, you are also fucked here because you love both of these characters. You don't want to do this. You aren't given a choice. When you hit the halfway point of the game where Abby confronts you in the theater, you then are forced to play as Abby. And most people's first thoughts are, aren't I supposed to kill Abby? I don't want to do this. At first, I thought the game was going to make us empathize with Abby's story and then bring us back to the theater, let us play as Ellie, and then knowing everything we know about Abby and the choices that she had to make, it would then give us the choice of whether she lives or dies. And Abby's story actually does a really good job in fleshing out her character. But did the game do that? Did the game give you a choice? Nope. The game just decides to put you in fucking Abby's shoes and tells you to kill Ellie, the person that we fucking love from the first game through to the second game, and a person that we empathize with. You now have to kill them. Oh no, who put cyanide in my, fuck you, I love you, Zenny cup? I'm gonna have to go fucking die on my Zenny design pillow. I don't know how to plug merch. So go down in the description and buy something. We've got t-shirts. Go buy something. Just buy something. I need money. Having a dual narrative where the game tells you to hate someone and then halfway through does a 180 and expects you to do the exact same thing, just the other way around, is absolutely insane. You might have noticed I didn't actually go into Ellie's story that much, and you're actually wrong. I did. You're terribly mistaken. I really, really did. Ellie goes to kill people. Sometimes she succeeds, sometimes she has a friend with her, and sometimes she realizes that the cycle of violence will only end if she learns to forgive and stop fueling the fight. I'm kidding. She doesn't learn that. She fucking annihilates everyone.
Please. You don't have to do that.
That'll do it.
Ellie's story ends where Abby's begins, and the jarring change in perspective can leave you with whiplash. You're told to kill someone, and then the game makes you play as them? I beg your fucking pardon? But with all of the stupid writing and the change of perspective, you know what blew my mind the most? It was that this change of character and window into the events that unfolded, this was actually when the game actually got good.
She's gone. Come on. Those were your fucking people. You're my people.
Abby is a character set up to fail from the very beginning. Watching Abby do what she did and playing through Ellie's story sets up Abby as this force of evil. She killed Joel, she killed Jesse, and she even made an attempt on Tommy. So when players were put into the shoes of Abby, there was no wonder that people were upset. However, I want to give Abby's story a chance. While Abby herself isn't anything special, the journey she goes on and the people she meets along the way is a completely different story. Abby's journey begins a week after the death of Joel, and the first thing you'll realize is that this story has nothing to do with Ellie. This is a standalone story, which can be a little bit confusing, but it doesn't really matter, because in the span of the first 2 hours, I was hooked. We begin by playing Abby as a child in her more vulnerable state, and it's through this window into Abby's life that we find out why she wanted Joel dead. She is the daughter of the surgeon that Joel murdered. And what's wild is that the game doesn't linger on this point for too long. It says what it needs to say and then moves on. It cuts away fast because it has a more important story to tell, and it's actually good for the most part. Abby has been called back to HQ where she meets up with Isaac, the leader of the Wolves. Abby is informed that her best friend murdered one of their own to save one of the Seraphites, the tribalistic anti-tech cult that also inhabits Seattle. Abby, despite being told not to, heads out to find her best friend in the the hopes of clearing his name and finding out the truth. This is a story about the manipulative nature of good and evil, and the labels that we give each other to make killing feel just a little bit easier. It's easier to kill a person when you're told they plan on destroying your way of life. This story is a deconstruction of those labels and tries to open the mind of the player to the idea that not everyone is evil, just the people at the top. Compare this to Ellie's story and you can instantly see how Abby's story has a lot more to say. Abby, while on her way to an aquarium where she believes her friend is held up, gets captured by the Seraphites and is sentenced to death. However, her execution is interrupted by two kids on the run from the same Seraphites. She saves their life and they do the same for her. And this is where the game truly becomes The Last of Us. Joel and Ellie's story is one of focus. Take Ellie to the Fireflies. It's simple, but it's the journey that makes you love the characters. Abby is now forced to work alongside those who she sees as enemies. After seeing the innocence in her enemy, we see Abby conflicted. She leaves what she sees as enemies, and she leaves with them seeing her just the same. Their mutual need to survive has come to an end, and they don't need each other. But as we see through Abby's dreams, she doesn't see it that way. Abby's life has no focus. It was consumed with revenge and murderous intent for so long that she doesn't know what to care about. Until now. Abby drops everything she believes in and returns to protect those that saved her. With Yara being injured, she's forced to open the eyes of her fellow wolves and request that they band together to help one another. Mel needs medical supplies to help Yara. And you know what we get? We finally get what we were promised. We get a sequel to The Last of Us Part 1. Ellie and Joel, a mission and a journey that makes you fall in love with both. Abby and Lev, a mission to save Yara and a journey that makes us fall in love with both. This is what we wanted. Abby and Lev are the new Joel and Ellie, which had a lot of people still upset. This still isn't what we were promised, but it's the closest we're gonna get. I'm not gonna blame people for not liking the parallels. All we've known about Abby is this murderous monster and a person we root against. But once Abby is given a true reason to live, this is where we see her character begin to shine. Lev, just like Ellie from the first game, is uneducated on the world around him, and Abby opens his eyes through dialogue, and we begin to see Abby turn from a killer to a protector, just like Joel in the first game. It's through this new purpose in life that she throws away everything she once knew, and this change is shown so perfectly in this scene right here.
Isaac.
What the hell are you doing?
I need you to hear me out.
What's that behind you?
He saved my life.
Move out of the way. We'll deal with you back home.
He's not one of them, please.
Abby, move.
God damn it, he's just a kid!
You have 3 seconds to get away from that scar. 1.
You really gonna shoot me?
2.
I'm not fucking moving. No!
What the fuck?
Look, we need to move. She's gone. Oh my god, she's gone. Come on. Those were your fucking people. You're my people. Listen to me. We're gonna have to fight to get out of this, okay? And then I need you to show us to those boats. We don't let anybody stop us. Yeah? Okay. Okay. Follow me.
It's a fantastic characterization of Abby and truly gives you a reason to root for her instead of against her. But I want to talk about characterization that's a lot simpler. I want to take some time to talk about one of the best segments of this entire game, and the best example I can think of where both Abby's story and Ellie's story intertwine in a good way. After saving Yara, Lev abandons everything to go back to the Seraphite home base in order to speak with his mother once more. Abby and Yara are gonna need to find a boat to get to the island where the Seraphites call home in order to save Lev, and we get a segment where a sniper is stopping you from getting to the docks. You meet up with a friend and you work together, making your way closer closer and closer to the sniper. And what I love is how they manage to characterize a person you can't even see. The sniper shoots cars in order to make noise to lead clickers towards you. You see the sniper pretend to go into a room and then run straight out in order to get an easy kill. Manny's death isn't just mindless here, it's building the character of this mystery man. It's amazing. And then we get this scene. Holy fucking shit, that's Tommy! And this blew my fucking mind. This game made me admire and hate this sniper. His skills, his tricks, his ability to maneuver around his opponent, and then they drop the bomb that this is actually someone you give a shit about. I have no words. Also, I'm just realizing now in the first game, you play a game of cat and mouse in a diner against a cannibal where you are completely underpowered and have no discernible way to beat your opponent. And then in this game, they make you go through a replica of the exact same diner, hinting that you're completely fucking useless and completely underpowered and you're about to get overwhelmed and oh my god, that's fucking brilliant! You see, this is how you make a player feel conflicted. Not like this, but with this. This is my favorite part of the game, and you've probably noticed I'm talking up this half of the game a lot, but unfortunately, this is where I have to start pointing out its flaws. I'm just tired of this game introducing me to new people only for them to die, or build up a character that I already know will die because I killed them as Ellie. Nora, a compassionate medic constantly showing a distinct caring nature who isn't afraid to break the rules in order to do what is right. Dead. Mel, a highly trained surgeon and a complicated love interest for Owen that can go deeper and deeper the more you play. Dead. Owen, the man that took the first steps in realizing the manipulation among leaders to make soldiers kill mindlessly and one of the last believers in the Fireflies. Dead. Isaac, a brutal leader and an intimidating character that represents the barely scabbed over wounds of a generation known only for killing in order to survive. Dead. Yara, dead. Manny, dead. Jordan, dead. Whitney, dead. I understand in the context of Abby's story, they're meant to represent Ellie's actions were horrid and cruel, and that not everyone is a bad guy. But can you stop force-feeding me death and look up the word subtlety for a single second, please? Abby's story tells a tale about thinking of yourself, giving life meaning, and the hard nature of giving up people who you don't need in your life. But it's less impactful when you realize that she didn't give up her old life. The entire life she had fucking died. Her choice to be with Lev in the end didn't end up being the hard choice. It was her only choice, ruining everything set up in the last 10 hours of the game. Ellie's story, along with Abby's, fail to hit you where it matters, and any good they had going for them is either ruined or murdered off for shock value. You've probably been seeing more trash than masterpiece so far in this video, but there is one character whose story does shine among the rest, and a story that sticks with you, even after the credits start to roll.
I'll take what I can get.
I was really sad when Joel died. There's about 30 minutes of gameplay footage where Ellie is just standing completely still, and while Ellie was just vibing, I was snotting up my shirt like a motherfucker. His death hit me like a Mack truck, and I was really upset that I wouldn't be able to see more of that Joel and Ellie goodness that we've all grown to love. But as I started playing through Ellie's story, the game started offering me those flashbacks, and y'all know how I feel about flashbacks! On day 1 of Seattle, we get a flashback of Joel and Ellie going to a museum for her 16th birthday, and that shit fucking rocked, dude! We get more of that Joel and Ellie goodness that we've all come to love. The game teases you with this little fucking bone and says, you want this, huh? You want this? Well, fuck you can't have it.
Oops.
What is wrong with you?
You should see your face right now.
What if I drown?
You're not gonna drown. You gotta work on that confidence, kiddo.
Yeah, keep laughing, old man. 'Cause, like... How's that feel?
Refreshing.
Yeah, it's not nice getting pushed in, is it?
Well, actually, we need to swim through this part anyway.
I I got you back. You're angry and upset.
I am very angry and upset.
And while all of this was amazing and oh my god, Ellie knows fucking space facts, the game comes to a really quick halt and reminds you that this relationship is being held together by a single thread. And that thread is Ellie not knowing what Joel did to the Fireflies. Day 2 of Seattle, we get another flashback. Joel and Ellie are creeping through a hotel in order to get to a guitar store to get strings for her guitar. Joel looks Ellie dead in the eyes and says that there is no cure and how she needs to cut the bullshit.
After you took me out of the Firefly Hospital, you said there were dozens of people like me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what they told me.
I've never met another immune person before.
I could be hiding it. You do.
Do you believe that?
Is now really the time for this?
We traveled across the entire country to bring me to the Fireflies. I had so many questions for them. Why did you pull me out of there while I was still unconscious?
Because I let them run their tests. And when I saw that they were useless, I got us out of there.
How do you know they were useless? Maybe if you just would have given them more time, they could have figured something out.
There was no cure. I know you wish things were different. I wish things were different. But they ain't. Is there something else you'd like to rehash?
Jesus Christ, Joel, that was a very cash money. And what's really good about these moments isn't just the Joel and Ellie goodness, but you start to realize that Joel and Ellie didn't have such a good relationship after the first game. This is something that is not hinted through the actual present day gameplay, but only in these flashbacks. Day 3 in Seattle, we get another flashback, and here Joel is forced to tell her the truth. And while all of this is super tragic and dramatic, the only thing going through my head was, why the fuck was this not The Last of Us Part 2? Why does Naughty Dog insist on showing me how amazing they are at storytelling in a game which story tastes like feet dipped in piss? At the very end of the game, we get one of the last moments of Joel and Ellie together. It's been 2 years of hardly any contact between the two, and Ellie makes it clear that she really doesn't like Joel, calling him out on his bullshit, talking about what he did, and it ends with this moment, and it changes the entire perspective of the game.
I was supposed to die in that hospital. My life would have fucking mattered, but you took that from me.
If somehow the Lord gave me a second chance at that moment, I would do it all over again.
I don't think I can ever forgive you for that. But I would like to try.
I'd like that.
I'll see you around.
Yep.
This fucking hurts. Because the day after this conversation takes place, Joel died. The whole game is set up to make you believe that Joel and Ellie were best buddies and that their father-daughter relationship couldn't have gone any better. And you realize here that Ellie didn't want revenge because she loved Joel. She wanted revenge because she never got the closure she wanted. She never learned how to forgive. A lot of people say that this game isn't a revenge story, it's a story about forgiveness. And while they're right, I think it can be a little bit more specific. It's not a story about forgiveness, it's a story about not knowing how to forgive. Abby ended up sparing Ellie. Abby learned how to forgive and moved on, but Ellie did not. A few years pass from this point in the game and we see Ellie and Dina living on a farm. They have a family now. Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention that Dina was pregnant with Jesse's baby when they started dating. I'm sorry, whoopsie. Ellie holds JJ, who was named after Joel and Jesse, and looks out into the field. She promises him that she will one day teach him how to play guitar. The game ends with Ellie moving on from what happened and finally looks out to the sunset as we fade to black and the game ends. Except that's not what happens at all.
All right, little spud. We should go check on Mama. Hey, how'd you get out? little dude. Come on, little guy. Do you want to eat?
Ellie can't forget what she's been through. She blames herself for Joel's death and she can't let it go. She needs to find Abby. Tommy gives her information about Abby's location and she leaves her life behind. Dina tells her that she can't keep going through this. She can't keep living a life where Ellie just keeps trying to run away. And this is where the game gets closest to becoming a masterpiece. The game baits you into thinking that the story comes to an end, but it's a reminder that even if the story ends for the viewer, the world doesn't stop for our characters. It keeps going because pain doesn't just stop. The game comes to a complete halt. You realize it's over, but through heavy themes and a mentally broken Ellie, the story kicks itself back into gear. By the time you find Abby, she has been broken to the core. Ellie needs to find the monster that she sees in Abby, but that monster isn't who Abby is anymore. Ellie takes on Abby and is victorious, but before she finishes the job, she spares Abby. And what I love about this is there are so many ways that you can take this moment, and here are the two ways that I see it. When drowning Abby, Ellie flashes back to Joel, specifically the night where she asks to reconnect and learn to forgive. A lot of people say that she wanted to learn forgiveness in regards to Joel and ended up learning that forgiveness with Abby, but I don't think she was forgiving Abby in the scene. She was forgiving Joel. Abby is a product of Joel's actions. Abby is like this because of Joel, and she finally acknowledges the things that Joel did and forgives him, holding no more grudges against all the events that unfolded because of his action, which includes the manifestation of Abby's need for revenge. By not killing Abby, she acknowledges what Joel did and forgives him. But when playing the game for a second time, I took its ending a different way. We used to view Abby as a monster, and as the game continues, we watch Abby grow into a protector, the kind of guardian that Ellie used to see Joel as. Abby takes care of Lev, teaches him about the world, and she would lay her life down for him. She only fights Ellie because Ellie threatened Lev. Abby didn't want to hurt Ellie because she isn't the hateful person that she used to be. This isn't the Abby that killed Joel. Ellie didn't want to kill Abby because if she did, she would have been killing Joel. A parent, a protector, a guardian, a Joel. So she stops. She goes home, and through her lust for revenge, Ellie loses the last of what she had. But it doesn't matter because what she gained will stick with her forever. She learnt how to forgive Joel, which is what she always wanted. The Last of Us 2 isn't a story about revenge. It's not a story about Ellie or Abby. In a way, we actually did get what we wanted. This was a story about Joel. The window into Joel's life, his manipulative nature, his excuses, his reasons behind what he did. We still loved Joel. That's why the story hit so hard. But this isn't a story about revenge. It's a story about learning how to forgive Joel, not a story where you try to forgive Abby. And the moment the game realized that it wasn't a story about revenge, but a story piece about the traumatizing journey of a girl who doesn't want to feel hate anymore, that's when the game truly went from trash to a masterpiece. I'll never say this game is perfect. I didn't actually like most of the game, but the last 3 hours made me feel something I've never felt before. You know what? Maybe I should make an hour-long video essay about how this game makes me feel.
Hello, Zenny. It's been a while. Do you remember me?
Yeah, I remember you. The video.
Very good. Then you know why I'm here.
You want me to wake up?
Wake up, yes. But I know that you're stubborn. You keep telling yourself that you're okay and that everything is fine. So instead of asking you again, I thought I might give you a choice. You can either wake up and face the reality of your imprisonment,
Or what?
facing your fears and wake up from this nightmare, or you can tarnish the loving relationship that you've set up for yourself. Be the monster that you keep telling yourself that you are not. Face the truth, or become a monster.
Wake up from what?
Stop lying.
I'm not lying!
You're floating.
Listen.
In a vat.
Please.
In a lab.
I'm serious.
They want to help you.
I don't know what you...
I want to help you.
Please just...
Why do you keep lying to yourself?
I'm scared. It's because I'm scared. It's because I'm scared.